Lesson 75, 76, and 77 in Part 6, Looking Ahead from Learn Violin Fast, Book 1. In these lessons, we're going to learn more about the details of the music notation, as well as a little bit more theory behind what we see. So far, we've just been focusing on figuring out what notes to play and how to play them, and now we're going to learn a little bit more about the theory behind all of that. So bar lines and numbers. So far, you've only played music that keeps track of time in a 4/4 beat pattern, played songs medium slow, and placed your fingers only on the tapes. Although for the near future, you don't need to learn about other ways to play, it's time to learn about them, so that when you do have to learn a song that keeps time in 6 beats or a piece, move relatively fast, and uses left finger placements other than the marks, you'll know how to problem solve to understand those concepts. So the bar number, very often when you look at music, you will see a little tiny number. On page 84, there's a number 21 above the staff, and that means it's the 21st measure. So we divide the staff into measures to help us keep track of notes, as well as it's how we really just read and make music, right? So the bar number means the bar of every piece will have particular bar numbers. Very long pieces and some symphonies, for example, can have 4, 5, even 600 measures, okay, because they're quite long. The vertical bar line divides the staff into those bars, and the double bar at the end means it's the end of the piece. Right? So I'm going to play that example. We have the 21st measure. It's in 4/4, and we have some tricky rhythms here, but again, we're going to talk about them a little bit later, right? So this is the example in number 75. This is a new bar, new bar, new bar, double bar, end of the piece. Lesson 76, tempo. The tempo marking will always appear at the top left at the beginning of the piece. So things that are global to the entire piece, things like the tempo, the key signature, the time signature, will always be at the top left. You'll notice that if you look through the music, you will always have the key signature, but the time signature very often is only displayed at the top left, and then it's not repeated for the remainder of the pieces unless it changes. So in the example on page 84, the tempo marking is moderato, and again, it's Italian for moderate. Right? So you're going to please review part 4. There you learned that tempo in Italian means the speed of music. In the above piece, the tempo or speed is moderato, which in Italian means moderate, not too fast, not too slow. Although there are many different tempo markings, here are the top ones you should be aware of right now. Andante means walking speed. Allegro does not mean fast, it means quick and lively. Moderato means moderate, and allegretto means a little quick and lively. And this is not a hard science. So the metronome wasn't invented, I believe, until 1800s. I think Beethoven was the first composer that had access to a metronome. But until, let's just say 1800s, I don't remember the exact date, we would just write the tempo marking, and the performer or the musician had some room for interpretation. It could be a little slow, it could be a little faster, but the idea is the general feel, right? Is it quick and lively? Is it moderate? Is it slow? Was really the feeling is what the composer wanted to convey. And now with modern technology and perfect precision timing and quartz metronomes and times, now composers use usually very specific tempo markings, and they want it exactly as they did. But back in the day, it would just be a feel, and it was up to the performer to interpret what the composer wished. All right, time signatures, lesson 77. Time signature is also known as meter. The time signature helps us to organize our music into measures and dictates how to count. The time signature, most importantly, tells us where beat 1 is. The first beat is the downbeat, and it's the most important beat of the measure, always. And it creates the feeling of repetition that leads to a musical piece that makes sense and how easy to play and follow as an audience member. Most music is counted in 3 and 4s counts. However, music can also be counted in 2, 6, 9s, 12s, and even 5s and 7s, which are odd and much more challenging to count. A time signature is a non-formal fraction, meaning it has 2 meanings, unlike an actual fraction, which has only 1 meaning. The top number of the time signature tells us how many beats are in a bar or a measure. And the bottom number tells us what kind of beats they are. Because the time signature is a non-formal fraction and lives on a staff, there's no fraction bar. Thus, the two numbers are just written. Some common time signatures you'll encounter are 4/4, 3/4, and 6/8. So remember, the time signature, we just say the two numbers. So it's not 4/4. We would just say 4/4. It's not 6/8. We would just say 6/8. So the way to properly pronounce the time signature is you start with the top number and you say the bottom number. Top number tells you how many beats are going to be in the measure. And the bottom number, think of it as the denominator of a fraction. So for example, 1 divided by 4 is the way we would write the fraction of quarter, right? 1 part of 4, which is a quarter. So 1/4 means quarter notes, and the top would be 4. Let's say it's a 4/4. It means 4 quarter notes are going to be equal to 1 measure. Now, that measure can be a whole note, it could be 2 half notes, it could be 4 quarters, it could be 1 half note and 2 quarters. So the time signature tells us the actual total value that measure needs to be equal to, and that cannot change. So music later, you'll see that starts with just 1 note. That 1 note must be taken from the last measure at the bottom. The musical piece must always be in full measures or bars. We can't have a half a measure just by itself. So we always need to have full measures. And if we start with a pickup or just like 1 note, we then have to take it from the last measure. All right. So the time signature only gives you the total sum of beats and rest per bar. There can be many variations, as you can see below. So in the example in page 85, the time signature is 4/4, and we have whole notes. We have half notes, we have quarters, we have eighth notes. You'll notice that an eighth note can be written with a filled-in circle, stem or a stick, and a tail, or it can be written connected with a bar line. Typically, when we have more than 1 eighth note, we like to connect them because it's a lot easier to see. But a lot of vocal music, because each note will have its own word or vowel, a lot of vocal music will have tails. So it really depends on what you're playing, but most of the time you'll see notes, especially in violin, connected if they're eighth notes or sixteenths later. All right, at the bottom, you see we have half notes, quarters, 4 eighth notes connected, quarter, then 4 sixteenths. So we haven't really learned much about sixteenths. The easy way to say them is ticka ticka. You'll notice that they're really squished together and that there's 2 bar lines at the top. All right, so I'm going to play the exercise or the example on page 85 at the bottom. We're in 4/4, and the only note we play is A. So here is the example. Ready, and 1, 2, 3. So that was the example on page 85. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next lesson.